Hello everyone, Triple here. And some of you might recognize this screen. I've been using this particular background for every one of my draft breakdowns, and this is no different. The next season of the NNDL, and we're majors this time, so it's gonna be a pretty tough season. But I did draft some very cool mods, a few different changes from last season. Since Dynamaxing and everything is not a thing anymore, we're using terrestrializing, but we have 2 Pokemon on our team that can and the rest can't. So you had to choose that manually. And also this is Gen 9 OU, where it's always been NetDex. Now it's OU. And I've been playing a lot of OU, so that kind of fits me just fine. I had first pick actually. I had wheel pick, which made it very interesting to build because I kind of just I got to choose one of the strongest Pokemon from the start, and then I had everything in bunches, so I could change my plans very easily to cover things, and that made it really cool to build this. So without further ado, let's get into my first pick, which is Iron Valiant. I had 2 choices, which I wanted, actually kind of 3. I was debating Dragapult, because Dragapult is something I've been wanting for a few seasons now. And the other 2 were Iron Valiant or Roaring Moon. Both are very good. I decided to go with Iron Valiant, however, because this thing is kind of nuts in draft. And that's because of one very, very simple reason. It gets so much coverage. It's good both physically and specially, so it's hard to prepare for. But then when you look at its move pool, it gets, of course, Fighting and Fairy coverage. However, it also gets Energy Ball and Grass Knot. It gets Fire Punch and Ice Punch. It gets Leaf Blade, Liquidation. It gets Knockoff. It gets Psychic and Psycho Cut. It gets Poison Jab. It gets Shadow Ball and Shadow Claw. It gets Thunderbolt and Thunder Punch. It gets X Scissor. It gets just so much different coverage from different types that makes it kind of nutty to prepare for, because you never know what it's gonna pull out of move wise. Because say you have your Steel type in, I have Fire Punch for that. Say or even Fighting type moves. If you have a Poison type in, I have Psychic and Psych Shock. If you bring in your let's see what else is good against this combo. I guess Flying. If you have Flying, I have Ice and Thunder Punch. And the thing is, since it's based on Gallade, it also gets some pretty good support moves. It gets Confuse Ray, it gets Hypnosis, it gets Electric Terrain, which would give it the Quark Drive boost. If I really wanted to BM, I could run Metronome. It gets Skill Swap, Skill Swap, why does it get Skill Swap? It can't change its ability, I'm pretty sure. That's a weird one. But it has so many options. And another thing you need to consider with this is Quark Drive. Quark Drive can be on speed, can be on attack or special attack. I can make it so that it's very versatile. Booster Energy is a really good item, but also just stuff like Scarfed or just normal attacking can be very good. It has surprisingly good defense. Its SPDF is a bit lacking, but 90 defense isn't bad, so it could live a physical hit decently well. I just think this is a very cool and interesting pick. Of course, Roaring Moon and Dragapult went in because I had to wait 22 picks before my turn came around again, so they both were gone when things came back. But I drafted this team with only wanting one mon really. The rest was mostly just improv. But there was one I really wanted, which was him. Earthworm is very good because it complements Iron Valiant really, really well. It resists both steel and poison and flying. It's a good ground check because of Earth Eater, and its defense is so incredibly high that it can comfortably switch in on anything. Having only 2 weaknesses is really good. Fire can be covered by liquidation from Iron Valiant. Just overall, a very solid pick. It's not too crazy because Earthworm is... Its attack isn't too great, but it does get Iron Defense Body Press. It gets Coil, which is very good setup. Same with Curse. It gets both Hazards, which is pretty huge. It's a hazard setter that can beat Glimora, which is kind of great. And then more importantly for me, it gets Metal Burst. You never know when I'm gonna pull out the Metal Burst. It can most of the time reliably live a hit, especially when you put into the mix that it only has 2 weaknesses. I can use an Oka or a Choppleberry to weaken it. But yeah. If I pull out the Metal Burst, that's a Pokemon gone. So that's also just very good. It has good Rock, Ground, and Steel coverage. It has Body Slam, Body Press, and that's kind of all it needs. It could put up the Sandstorm. And also, it's one of 2 Pokemon with Shed Tail, so I have access to Shed Tail on my team, which is pretty huge for some of my later Pokemon, because a few of them rely on setting up. And with a Shed Tail, that becomes way easier. So yeah, really, really useful pick. And I paired it with another Pokemon because I was getting kind of Fire Weak. I paired it with Garchomp. Garchomp isn't new, but it's still really, really solid. It's just like, it's a kind of a comfort pick. I don't think it has Skill Shot anymore, which, to be fair, makes it kind of more balanced, but it has an incredible speed there. It is very strong, very bulky. It has a lot of good coverage. Again, both hazards are available. It gets Sword Stand still. It can run special with like Fire Blast. Garchomp is just like tried and true, very solid. Not to mention, both Earthworm and Garchomp have Scent Veil. So I could potentially play around with that. But yeah, Garchomp is one of those Pokemon, very good. Ruskin Rocky Helmet also, such a solid combination that I can really use. If they have like a physical, for instance, like Iron Fists. He's gonna struggle with this because every time he hits me, it's so much damage, etc, etc. Now, I think Iron Fist gets Ice Punch, so that's a bit iffy. But, like, it's just very useful. It has a great typing. And, yeah. I never knew this thing got Liquid... I knew it learned Aqua Tail, but Liquidation? For real? Okay. I mean, like, what is there to say about Garchomp? Garchomp is very good. I don't know how to transfer into this, but this next duo I got really finishes like my defensive core really, really well. I got, you might see it a bit, there wasn't a specific picture for Rotom Mow, but I got Rotom Mow because I wanted a defogger that's like solid. And also this kind of beats Golden Go because I get Ghost and Dark coverage on it. So it's a defogger, it's defensive, I was kind of like worried about special defense, which this thing doesn't lack special defense. It's kind of really good. It gets a lot of utility due to it being a ghost. It gets Wisp and T-Wave, useful. It can trick a Choice Scarf because Choice Scarf Rotom is also pretty good. You can even run some like more niche sets like Nasty Plots or even like Nightshade can be useful. Doesn't have too much anymore in the terms of like utility. It gets a lot of good coverage. It has Rain Dance Sunny Day if I need it. And for us, it's just like very solid defensively. Only being weak to fire. Again, I have a fire switch in. I have next one is also a fire switch in. And also like bug, which bug I don't mind at all. Because I think both fairy and fighting resist bug. So I should be pretty good with that. And to pair that with, I chose Arcanine. And you might see it here in the middle, the Terra symbol. Arcanine is one of the 2 Pokemon I chose to be a Terra Captain. Because this thing, defensively, can be very good with an unpredictable typing. Say someone uses a water type against it and I turn into a dragon. Or a grass type. Grass type is even better because of Flash Fire. I can be a grass type with only a weakness to flying and bug. And ice, I guess. But I remove my fire weakness, which is very, very good. And beyond that, one of the things I instantly noticed is the strategy with Dragapult, where it Dynamaxes and E-Speeds. That's something Arcanine can do as well. It gets E-Speed, it can normal type, Terrestrialize, E-Speed things to death, and just be very strong. One other thing, it gets, Outrage, Play Rough, both very good on Terrestrialized Pokemon. Psychic Fangs could potentially be nice, Wild Charge. But one thing this got, which it didn't have last game, and it's kind of like, it's not really in this game, I think. But Hisuian Arcanine learned Raging Fury, which is Outrage if it was a fire type. So now Arcanine learns Raging Fury. And that is good. Like, Dragon was a problem because it could be stopped by Fairy. Fire does not have that problem. It's like, it's a really strong option, better than Flare Blitz. It has the same power as Flare Blitz, but you don't take the recoil. But it's really strong, and you can Lumberry to get yourself out of confusion. So, potentially very nice. It has the Morning Sun and Roar and stuff like that to be a support Pokemon. It can be a very, very good defensive Pokemon, if we're being real. It has, even, like, you might even use stuff like Charm to, like, make things better. You have Intimidate, which is great. You could run Sun, Solar Beam with a Grass type. There is a lot of things you can do with just terrestrializing this Pokemon. And that makes it very good. Justified could be useful. I don't see it being as useful, but still. This thing is at... Oh, wait, hold on. I didn't even think about this. Iron Head with a Steel Terra type with Flash Fire. This basically becomes Heatran. That's a very good combination to have. Heatran has always been a very good Pokemon. So, yeah. With all these old Pokemon here, I feel like we should move on to something new. And a bit of support, these were the next 2 I picked. This is a bit of support, bit of a just curious pick. Because Bombardier it has the Delmice gimmick, where it has an ability that gives it an extra stab, which is very, very cool. It has good attack and decent stats overall, but the biggest reason I wanted this, it gets a lot of good support moves, but it gets Parting Shot and Memento, which again, let me set up pretty well. Also stuff like Tailwind, Whirlwind, Taunt is very, very useful. It can both physically attack with that very high attack stat, but it also gets Nasty Plot with Heat Wave, which could be very good. Attacks like Drill Run are useful. Stone Edge, of course, it gets, because of Rocky Payload, it gets Stone Edge, Stab, and that can mess some things up. Because, yeah, Steel types are a bit of a problem, but again, they have to fear the Heat Wave or the Drill Run. Let me look at the bottom moves. It has Feather Dance, it has Endure, which could be cool. Power Trip, I could set up and Power Trip. What is your reliable setup option? Hold up. categories, status. It gets Roost, of course, useful. It gets Stealth Rocks, surprisingly enough. You don't have a single setup option outside of Nasty Plot. Cool. But yeah, this is a very interesting pick. U-turn is very useful. Rock Tomb could be situationally useful. And this was more of a curious pick because this Pokemon looks alright and it looks like a very interesting choice. I have to say, I wanted Iron Jugulus at first, but that Pokemon got taken right before my pick, so I didn't get it eventually. But yeah, that was my original pick because then also I could have abused Electric Terrain to get both my Iron Pokemon boosted. But eventually I wanted the Dark type, I went with this. It's a perfect type replacement and Parting Shot Memento is just so useful. Friends pointed out at this point, this was just before I picked Bombardier and the next Pokemon. I had a glaring weakness to Fairy. Because a good special Fairy could mess me up a lot. And what better special counter than Blissey? The villain arc the villain arc doesn't continue, but Blissey is very good as a special wall. I didn't want to pick Chansey, because Chansey is designed to stall. Blissey at least has the option to run something else. There's some pretty useful moves in here. I can Serene Grace, but most of the time it's here to just wall things and Seismic Toss and be annoying to deal with. The nerf did hit, the recovery move nerf did hit this pretty hard. With Recover only having 8, Soft Boiled only having 8. So that's kind of annoying. But the amount of support in this Pokemon, it can Snowscape to put up snow, it can Sunny Day, it can Electric Terrain, which also helps my Iron Valiant a lot. It can Trailblaze now, so I could buff speed and outspeed things and Seismic Toss. Thunder Wave, of course, very useful. Trick, very nice. It gets Stealth Rocks. Healing Wish is one that potentially could come in clutch, which makes it very nice. It gets Light Screen. No Reflect, surprisingly enough, but Light Screen is useful. Blissey is just one of those Pokemon, Natural Cure. Blissey is hard to deal with in draft. If you have a special attacker, it forces you to switch, which if I have Hazards up, that makes you take damage, and it's just a very, very good wall. So, something I was pretty happy to pick up. However, next to Pokemon is where things get a little bit interesting. This is actually, now I felt like I had a strong enough core that I was now I can start picking some weirder Pokemon. Starting with Veluza. And this was partially because of Orthworm. Veluza has the Fish Fillet Away, which is very good. It's a Shell Smash, but it takes health instead of dropping your stats. With a Shed Tail up, I can potentially... I can bring in, what's it called, on a ground type. Orthworm on a ground type. It won't be able to hit me and be forced to switch out. And then I can switch in Shed Tail to Veluza on a fire type or a fighting type, which both get covered really well by this typing. And then I Fillet Away and I'm very dangerous suddenly. It has good stats. The Sanity speed is kind of low, but it's I was debating between this and Bruxish. Bruxish is a bit quicker, but it doesn't have Fillet Away, and more importantly, it doesn't have Mold Breaker. Mold Breaker is pretty huge, because with Drill Run I could hit mons with Levitate, like Rotom Heat or stuff like that. Rotom Mow even, and sorry, Rotom Wash. I have Rotom Mow, so I don't need to be worried about that. Rotom Mow is actually one of the few Pokemon that could reliably come in on this once it's set up. but I have it, so I took it out of the way. And it has a lot of good coverage. It has Drill Run Crunch. It has Liquidation, which I could use to hit Water Absorb mons. I have Psychic Fangs, which good stab. Same with Zen Headbutt. It gets Recover, which pretty useful. Night Slash. Because keep in mind, it has Sharpness. So Night Slash, Psycho Cut, and Aqua Cutter are all buffed. And all have, I think, a high crit ratio. Yeah, all of them have a high crit ratio. So I could potentially run like a Lens Sharpness, and I just crit everything continuously. Which also very strong to use. Otherwise, I could also run Final Gambit, because this one gets that move, and that would just get rid of a problem. So those are all things you have to keep in mind. Mold Breaker is very good. If you don't want to risk the health loss, but you still want the speed, you can Agility. It gets Aqua Jet if you need it. So it's really solid. It's also kinda bulky. Like, it could probably live a hit. So yeah, very interesting Pokemon, and I'm really happy that I drafted this. However, I'm more happy that I drafted this. Here's my second Terra Captain, and that's purely because of one thing, which is Ice Scales, right? Ice Scales is a broken ability because it doubles your SPDF, basically, but they put it on a Pokemon with a bad typing. So what if it doesn't have a bad typing anymore, right? Say you bring in your Fire type and suddenly you have an Ice Scales Water type in front of you. I calced, right? GU with the Beads of Ruin. It lowers your SPDF. In the Sun, with a Choice Specs, with modest max stats, against Frostmoth, like a SPDF Frostmoth. Its fire attacks, which can one-shot even Blissey, its fire attacks do 40%. And I kill it with a Terra Blast. And I Quiver Dance up on it. Ice Scales with Quiver Dance with an unpredictable typing is insane. It has a lot of coverage too, which makes it kind of hard to prep for. It gets the Terra Blast, which makes it able to have different typings. But it also naturally learns Giga Drain, it learns Hurricane, it learns Play Rough for some reason. It has Dazzling Gleam, it has Air Slash. Bug Buzz and Blizzard are very good. Aurora Veil could potentially be clutch, but it gets a decent amount of coverage. Snowscape, also good to keep in mind. Snowscape buffs my defense now. So that suddenly makes this, because then I have 90 defense, 90 SPDF. And this becomes incredibly hard to break, especially once I start getting Quiver Dance up. And the whole idea is a late game Quiver Dance Frostmoth has enough bulk to basically beat anything. And that's what makes it very interesting. This with an unpredictable typing is huge. And I feel like it's gonna put in a lot of work. Which is why I chose it as a Terra Captain. But yeah, Frostmoth is very cool. These were my last two Pokemon now. I had the last wheel pick. I didn't really know what to pick. I wanted a Ghost type as a blocker. And I kind of wanted a Poison type, but I didn't end up managing to get one. I wanted a T-Spike remover, but I had to sacrifice that for a cool pick. Which actually, I'm really happy with this. I feel like this one is kind of underrated. Because Cloth has some of the best abilities. It has, of course, the Anger Shell, which is a mini Shell Smash when I'm at half HP. Which, that in itself is great. Hold up, I'm changing something. Yeah, this gets Endure. So, look at it this way. I have Cloth in front of you. I have a Weakness Policy. I have Endure. I Endure. I suddenly have 1x Well, I have 1 extra speed, so I'm quick. I have 3 extra attack. Suddenly this is a problem. Actually, I should probably make a video out of that. That sounds really cool. Suddenly I'm a problem. Anger Shell is just a free buff, basically. It does lower your defense and SPDF, but when you're at half HP, you're in one-shot range anyway. So it doesn't really matter. Not to mention that this gets a decent amount of coverage. It gets X-Scissor and Crab Hammer most of all, which help it cover for grass and ground. Which that in itself is huge, especially considering that water isn't that much of a problem to me because of Rotom Mow. This is it's a good defensive pick, and you have to fear the boosts. But then, if you look on the other side of this coin, it has really good defense, and it has Regenerator. This could also just sit in things' faces, eat hits, knock off, be annoying. It gets Swords Dance, which you have to look out for. I'm pretty sure it gets... Oh, maybe not. I thought it got Rock Polish. It gets Trailblaze, which 1 boosted speed, 2 hits water types. Say you have your water type in front of this, and I have the Endure Weakness Policy, etc. I Trailblaze, and I have +2 speed, and +3 attack, and boom, you're dead. This thing, I feel like it's so slept on, but it sounds really good. It doesn't have the most in terms of coverage. It has ground, it has rock, it has ghost, dark, water, bug. What else does it have? It has grass and Trailblaze, but that's it. It gets normal, obviously, but it doesn't have too much, but it has some really good utility. And I definitely think this could put in a lot of work, especially against fire types. For instance, Cerulege, who is a physical fire type, won't really be able to do much against this. And with the Anger Shell, with Regenerator, it can wall monsters like that fairly easily. Another example of that would be Arcanine, but I have it. Plus, this thing is weak to water and grass, which I have covered in Rotom Mow and Arcanine. But it's also weak to ground, which I also have covered with Earthworm. So, I have some really good defensive type covering, which makes this a very interesting team. And then last, I have Sableye. This was a very close one. I was deciding between Palisand and Sableye. However, Sableye gives me the most utility, because Prankster is a really good ability. It shuts down setup. Ooh, hold on, I just realized something cool. Okay, no, that doesn't have anything to do with anything. This one is it's a trickster. It has Wisp, it has Trick, it has T-Wave, which makes it very useful. It has Encore, which shuts down setup. It has Disable, which shuts down attacks. It could sub-disable like my Dragapult does, which makes it kind of good against fairies, because those tend to only have 1 fairy move. So if you shut down the fairy move, then you're suddenly very hard to kill. And yeah, it's just very useful. Skill Swap could come in huge. Metal Burst, again, Metal Burst is here. I love my Metal Burst. It gets Imprison, which I could potentially use if I know what Pokemon, what set, etc. But yeah, it's just very good utility. It can help me out of some tough spots, and hopefully it helps me a bit. This also has the same as Blissey, where this one learns Reflect, not Light Screen. Oh no, this one does learn both. So I could potentially use Sableye as a screen setter, which with Prankster isn't the worst, because then with screens up I could set up my Veluza or my Cloth or something like that, or even Frostmoth. With Screen Swap, Frostmoth actually becomes kind of insane. Because, yeah, I have the ice skills, I have an unpredictable typing, I can basically just sweep. So yeah, this is potentially really useful. And I don't know how often I'm gonna bring it, but it's nice to have in the back. And also, nice to not have to face this Pokemon later. So yeah, that's my team. It's very interesting. It's kind of different from how I normally draft. But there's a lot of interesting new mons here. Like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 out of my 6 mons are new gen mons. And I think they're gonna put in some great work. And my other mons are very good defensively and very hard to break, so they provide a really good like backbone to this team. And yeah, I'm super happy with it. And even though Majors is gonna be tough to face against, I think we can do pretty well here. So yeah, Season 5 everybody, let's go! I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.